They don't feel love when they meet most humans. Not warmth, not resonance, not connection. Only a strange emotional neutrality, as if their heart has stepped outside the old human frequency. For decades, psychologists described this as burnout, emotional fatigue, detachment. But these explanations no longer fit because the experiences are too synchronized, too global, too eerily identical. People who have never met speak as though reading the same cosmic script. And this raises a possibility that reaches far beyond psychology into the very fabric of consciousness itself. What if this emotional disconnection isn't a flaw, but an evolutionary signal? A subtle shift in the architecture of the human mind, a quiet resonance change, a transition from one mode of consciousness into another. For decades, Dr. Michio Kaku has asked a profound question. What if consciousness is not static, but evolving? Because if that is true, if the mind is slowly tuning itself to a new cognitive frequency, then the inability to feel love the old way may be the first whisper of a species preparing to transform. A clue that humanity is approaching a new emotional frontier, written not in poetry or mysticism, but in the physics of the universe itself. For more than 50 years, Dr. Michio Kaku has dedicated his life to one pursuit: to understand the mind of the universe. Not metaphorically, not poetically, but scientifically through the language of physics. He often reminds us that humanity is still a young species, operating at what he calls Type 0 civilization, just beginning to harness the forces of nature. But Kaku believes something extraordinary. The jump from a Type 0 to a Type 1 civilization begins in the mind, long before it appears in our technology. According to Kaku, consciousness is not a vague idea. It is a measurable physical process, shaped by energy, vibration, and patterns. This is where awakened individuals enter the picture. Across the world, those who describe themselves as awakened often speak of a heightened clarity, a deeper intuition, a sense of stepping outside the old emotional matrix, and an inability to feel love in the way they once did. At first, this seems like emotional numbness. But when viewed through Kaku's cosmic lens, something else emerges. Awakened individuals may be early fragments, the first pixels of a new cognitive picture. Kaku frequently suggests that consciousness evolves the way galaxies do, slowly, silently, beautifully, until one day a new structure appears. Perhaps these awakened individuals are the beginning of that structure, a preview of what the human mind might become, not in some distant future, but in the first moments of now. To understand why awakened individuals no longer feel love in the way they once did, we must return to one of Michio Kaku's most elegant ideas. Consciousness is a pattern, and patterns can evolve. Kaku often compares the universe to a grand symphony, a vast sea of vibrations, frequencies, and interacting waves. In this view, your thoughts are not abstract feelings. They are vibrational signatures, patterns of electrical and biochemical activity. Here's the profound part. Human connection, empathy, and love all depend on frequency alignment. Kaku simplifies it this way. Two radios cannot play the same song unless they're tuned to the same frequency. Love, biologically and psychologically, is a frequency match, a resonance between two nervous systems interpreting reality at similar levels. But what happens when one nervous system evolves and begins operating on a different frequency range? This is the quiet scientific layer behind the awakened experience. Higher cognitive clarity, heightened pattern detection, increased emotional independence equals a shift in neural frequency. Not supernatural, not mystical, but physical, measurable, predictable, and inevitable in an evolving species. Awakened individuals often describe reduced emotional chaos, less attachment to validation, sharper intuition, a calm detachment from social expectations. To Kaku, this mirrors a known principle in physics. When a system jumps to a higher vibrational state, it becomes incompatible with lower frequency interactions, not by choice, but by natural law. So when awakened individuals say they can no longer feel love with most people, what they are truly experiencing is this: a frequency mismatch. Not emotional failure, not psychological damage, but the earliest sign of a cognitive shift, the mind tuning itself to a wider bandwidth. And as Kaku reminds us, evolution does not ask for permission. It simply moves forward. And here is where the mystery deepens. Across cities, states, and communities, thousands of awakened individuals report the same unexpected contradiction. They feel more empathetic than ever, yet less emotionally connected to most people. More intuitive, yet less interested in traditional relationships. More aware, yet strangely out of sync with the emotional world around them. They love humanity, but don't always feel love from humanity. They understand people, but rarely resonate with them. They care deeply, yet emotional chemistry feels dim, distant, or absent. This is not a small phenomenon. It is precise, consistent, and eerily synchronized. The contradiction: those who are the most awake, the most emotionally intelligent, often feel the least connected to the emotional patterns of society. And while psychology offers fragmented explanations, none fully account for one shocking detail. These experiences are nearly identical across different cultures, ages, backgrounds, and belief systems. No communication, no shared ideology. Yet the same emotional mismatch emerges like a repeating cosmic code. Some scientists observing human behavioral data have quietly noted rising trends in heightened intuition, emotional independence, reduced fear-based bonding, increased sensitivity to energy and environment. None of this points to isolation. It points to transition, a shift, a divergence, as if a subset of the population is slowly relocating to a new emotional frequency, while the rest of humanity remains on older wavelengths. The mystery is not that awakened people feel disconnected. The mystery is that they are all describing the same disconnection in the same way, at the same moment in history. A sign, or perhaps a signal, that something deeper is happening beneath the surface of human emotion. Now we enter one of the most controversial ideas in modern neuroscience, a concept so delicate that most scientists avoid it entirely: the possibility that human consciousness operates on a measurable frequency, and that awakened individuals across America are experiencing a sudden shift in that frequency. In physics, every system has a vibration, an oscillation, and consciousness itself, though poorly understood, also oscillates. Your brainwaves delta, theta, alpha, beta, gamma are measurable electromagnetic frequencies. But what happens if the collective frequency of a society begins to change? For decades, awakened Americans, empaths, meditators, mystics, seekers, showed remarkably stable brainwave patterns. But in recent years, researchers started noticing something strange: a rise in irregular synchronization, people reporting the same symptoms, at the same time, in completely different states, feeling out of sync, feeling ahead of everyone else, feeling like reality itself was lagging behind. When systems fall out of phase, you get interference patterns, static, distortion, just like when two radio stations overlap on the same frequency. Human consciousness may be undergoing a similar interference event. And if that is true, then the discomfort awakened Americans feel today is not a personal failing, but a sign that the mind, the most mysterious phenomenon in the universe, is preparing for its next evolutionary upgrade. By now, thousands of awakened Americans have described the same unsettling experience. Reality doesn't match what I feel anymore. This isn't delusion. This isn't imagination. This is a psychological physical mismatch, a phenomenon that emerges when the inner model of the world updates faster than the outer world itself. The human brain is not a passive camera. It is a prediction engine constantly forecasting the next moment. When these predictions align with the world, you feel in sync. When they don't, your consciousness experiences friction. And awakened individuals, meditators, deep thinkers, those who have dissolved old beliefs, tend to update their mental models far more rapidly than the average person. That alone can create what scientists call cognitive environmental desynchronization, a fancy phrase meaning your mind evolves faster than your surroundings. Imagine upgrading your computer to the latest processor, but keeping the same old, outdated software. The hardware is ready. The processing speed is extraordinary, but the environment is still operating on yesterday's code. This mismatch creates lag glitches, moments where the world simply doesn't feel correct. This explains why so many awakened Americans are saying, "I don't fit into this timeline anymore. I feel like I'm watching life rather than living it. I see things people around me don't notice." These aren't crises. They are symptoms of accelerated cognitive evolution. And perhaps the reason it feels like reality is falling behind you is because, in a very real sense, it is. And this brings us to the part many awakened people hesitate to admit, not because it is dramatic, but because it is painfully true. Higher consciousness is often accompanied by higher loneliness. In physics, coherence is everything. Lasers work because every photon vibrates in perfect synchrony, but a single photon vibrating at a higher frequency than the rest cannot form a beam. It simply travels alone. This is the emotional paradox awakened individuals face in America today. You vibrate at a frequency others have not yet reached, and so your relationships, romantic, social, even familial, begin to feel misaligned. It is like tuning into a higher radio station, yet trying to hold a conversation with someone, still listening to static. And this mismatch isn't about superiority. It's about bandwidth. Your mind processes deeper patterns, subtle behaviors, hidden motives, emotional inconsistencies, while others operate on layers you have already transcended. This is why awakened people say things like, "I outgrow people fast. I can't force myself to open up anymore. I understand them, but they don't understand me." It's not arrogance. It's dimensional distance. Neuroscience tells us that empathy expands with self-awareness. But if only one side expands, the emotional bridge collapses under its own weight. And so awakened minds begin to feel something unusual, a sense that love, the way society defines it, no longer satisfies them, not because they don't want love, but because what they want no longer exists in the environments they grew up in. This is not the end of connection. This is the beginning of seeking a different kind of mind, one that resonates at your level, one that exists somewhere in this vast field of consciousness. If awakened people don't feel love the way they used to, then what is the new form of love they're evolving toward? Michio Kaku often describes reality as a symphony of vibrating strings. Every emotion, every thought, every experience is just another vibration in the grand cosmic orchestra. Love, then, is not a chemical accident. It is a resonance phenomenon. Two minds vibrating in harmony across space and time. And this is where awakened individuals step into unfamiliar territory. They no longer resonate with love based on convenience, proximity, physical attraction, or emotional dependence. They seek something radically deeper. They seek quantum connection, a bond where two consciousnesses recognize each other as if they've met in another lifetime or another dimension. In physics, entanglement means this: two particles can be separated across the universe. Yet when one changes, the other changes instantly. Distance becomes irrelevant. Time becomes irrelevant. Only connection remains. This is the kind of love awakened people crave. Not attachment, not possession, but resonance. And because this form of love is rare on Earth, still emerging, still evolving, awakened individuals may go years, even decades, without encountering a true match. Old forms of love feel too small. New forms of love feel too far away. And so they exist in the in-between, a liminal space where the heart is awake, but the world around them remains asleep. Awakened souls don't feel love the way others do. because they are waiting for a different kind of mind, a mind they can meet not just emotionally, but dimensionally.